You're scrolling through your phone one evening, and you stop. You realize you haven't replied to anyone in 3 days. Not because you forgot, not because you were busy. You just didn't want to. The messages are right there. You can see them. A friend checking in, someone asking how you're doing, a family member who just wants to talk. And you look at them. You read every single one. Then you put your phone face down, and somehow that feels like a relief. No guilt yet, just this quiet, strange exhale. Like you finally took off shoes that were one size too small. But here's the thing. This isn't the first time. You've done this before. Disappeared for a while. Gone quiet. Let the notifications pile up like unread mail you're not ready to open. And if someone asked you why, you probably couldn't explain it. I just needed space. I've been tired. I don't know. I just wasn't feeling social. But something about this isn't normal silence. Be honest. Have you ever done this? Just suddenly stopped responding to everyone without really knowing why? Because there's a pattern here most people never actually see. Here's what it looks like from the outside. One day, someone is present, replying quickly, making plans, laughing in the group chat. Then, nothing. Days pass. Sometimes weeks. The person is physically fine, still alive, still posting an occasional story online, but completely unreachable in any real way. People around them start to wonder, did I do something wrong? Are they okay? Why won't they just say something? But from the inside, it feels completely different. It doesn't feel like disappearing. It feels like surviving. Because somewhere, usually slowly, quietly, without a clear moment you can point to, being around people started to cost something. Conversations started feeling heavy, even light, harmless ones. Even with people you love. You'd finish a phone call and feel more tired than before it started. You'd scroll through a message and think, I'll reply later, and later just never came. This isn't rudeness. This isn't depression in the obvious sense. This is something more specific, and it runs deeper than most people realize. Your brain has a system that tracks something called social energy. It's not just about being introverted or extroverted. That's too simple. What's really happening is this. Your nervous system is constantly measuring how safe and how costly each interaction feels. When life is calm, connecting feels easy, natural, even energizing. But when your inner world is overloaded, stress, emotional weight, unanswered questions about your own life, your brain quietly shifts into a protective mode. It's called social withdrawal response. And it's not a choice, not fully. Think of it like this. Imagine your phone battery is at 4%. You stop running apps, you turn off the screen, you protect what's left. That's what your brain does with people when it's overwhelmed. It doesn't hate them, it's not punishing them, it's just trying to conserve something. And here's what makes it complicated. This protective shutdown often looks exactly like coldness from the outside. But on the inside, it feels like the only way to breathe. There's also something else happening, something most people never talk about. When someone withdraws like this, repeatedly, deeply, there's a cost they don't always see clearly. The longer the silence goes, the harder re-entry feels. Think about it. After 3 days of not replying, responding becomes slightly awkward. After a week, it feels like you need to explain yourself. After 2 weeks, it feels almost impossible to just pick up normally. So the silence stretches, not because you don't care, but because returning feels almost harder than staying quiet. And here's the painful part. The people on the other side often fill that silence with their own stories. They must be angry with me. Maybe I said something wrong. They clearly don't value this friendship. Relationships quietly erode, not through arguments, not through betrayal, through disappearance. And the person who withdrew? They often feel it too, this low background guilt, this knowing that time is passing and the gap is growing. But they still can't bring themselves to break it, because the exhaustion that caused the silence, it's still there. Here's where it gets unexpected. This pattern, this pulling away, this going quiet, isn't always a flaw. In many people, it's actually a sign of something that matters. People who withdraw this deeply are often people who feel everything more intensely. They don't disconnect because they care too little. They disconnect because they've been giving too much, emotionally, mentally, energetically, and the tank is completely empty. Psychologists sometimes call this empathic overload. You absorb the emotions of conversations, of other people's problems, of the general weight of being present. And after a while, your system says, enough. The withdrawal isn't weakness. It's actually a kind of deep self-awareness, a built-in warning signal. The problem isn't that it happens. The problem is that most people have never learned how to respond to that signal without disappearing entirely. So what's actually going on beneath all of this? Here's the mental model that makes it clear. Think of your emotional world like a cup. Connection, real meaningful connection, requires a cup that has something in it. When life is hard, when you're processing things internally, when stress is quietly piled up over weeks, the cup empties. And most people, when their cup is low, keep trying to pour for everyone else until they physically can't anymore. Then comes the shutdown. The insight isn't about forcing yourself to respond when you have nothing left. The insight is learning to notice before the cup empties completely. Learning to say, I need to slow down, instead of vanishing without a word. And on the other side, if someone has gone quiet in your life, the insight is this: it's almost never about you. Silence like this is usually someone trying to find a floor to stand on, trying to locate themselves again. The kindest thing you can offer isn't pressure. It's a simple, open message. No guilt. No, why haven't you replied? Just, I'm here. No rush.
Whenever you're ready. That kind of message? It reaches people in silence in a way nothing else does.
Remember that moment at the beginning? The phone face down, the messages unread, the strange, quiet relief? Now you understand what that moment actually was. It wasn't laziness. It wasn't coldness. It wasn't you failing at being a person. It was a signal from somewhere deep and honest inside you saying, I need to come back to myself before I can show up for anyone else. And that's not something to be ashamed of. The people who go silent aren't broken. They're often the ones who feel the most and have simply run out of ways to carry it quietly while still showing up fully. The real work isn't learning to force yourself back into conversations you're not ready for. The real work is building an inner life strong enough that you can return, not because you have to, but because slowly you want to again. If this felt familiar, what part of it hit closest to home? The silence? The guilt? The not knowing how to come back? Be honest with yourself. You probably already know the answer.